I lost the love of my life in the worst way possible. Weeks later, she came back. Not alive. Not dead. Something I can't explain. Call me delusional. Call me whatever you'd like. God knows I've heard it all, and from my own family and friends. The people I thought would always believe me have written me off as some kind of nutcase, fueled by grief to drag all of my loved ones into my own perverted delusions. And so I turn here, to a place where I have no one whose opinions of me I care about. No offense. Eleanor's funeral was a small event. It was less than what I would have chosen for her, but it was already more than what her family and I could afford combined, and I knew that she wouldn't have wanted any of us going completely bankrupt for her even in the event of her death. It sounds so ridiculous and maybe even cold to those who didn't know her, but the times when I hear her voice the most in my head are when dealing with my finances. Put those chips down. The lights in the convenience store would flicker, and I would swear she was with me, and my hands would shake, causing the bag of Doritos to crinkle, causing the clerk to squint his eyes at me from behind the counter. Jesus Christ, Diego, the electricity bill is already late, are you crazy? And then we would say it together, except my voice came out of my mouth and hers was only imaginary, and the clerk would look at me all crazy and she got away without embarrassment because she wasn't alive anymore and I was. Every dollar counts. Yeah? Spare me the lecture, Ellie. Anyways. It was small, and after a gathering at the funeral home, closed casket, of course, it took place in her grandmother's backyard. It was catered by her favorite restaurant, and we labeled it a celebration of life. And we all gathered around an unlit fire pit and told stories about her until her mother's crying was so loud even from the upstairs bedroom that her brother told us it was time for us all to go home. He was the only one who even really looked at me that entire night. As I was leaving, he stopped me, grabbing my arm. Diego. He sighed, rubbing at his face with the hand that wasn't still holding on to me as if I was going to flee. Are you, doing okay? I didn't know what to say to that. Was I okay? Did he mean in the grand scheme of things, or right this second? Was he asking if I was okay or if I was going to kill myself? I didn't know the answer to any of it. I had always hated that question, and right then it felt almost hilariously impossible to respond to. I blinked at him dumbly. Sure. He looked at me for a few seconds too long to be comfortable. I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to say it's not your fault, Diego. He wanted to say, ignore our family. They're heartbroken, and they don't know what to think right now. I pulled my arm away, letting him off the hook. I'll see you around. I blanked. He nodded weakly. That was the sort of awkward interaction that previously probably would have haunted me for weeks. I would have paced in our bedroom that night, with Eleanor lying on the bed, trying to read through my anxious rambling and rolling her eyes at me. But right then, this time, it was gone from my head almost as soon as he was out of my field of vision. I didn't want to go home, so I drove around for a while. I avoided every spot that we used to go to. At every right turn we used to take I would turn left. At every intersection I fought the urge to close my eyes so I wouldn't picture her waiting on the corner after work, waving to me to pick her up. I ran a couple of stop signs, wanting to get out of every familiar neighborhood as quickly as possible. It didn't take long for me to realize it was no use. She was everywhere, she would always be everywhere. I just had to bite the bullet. The package didn't faze me at first. It looked unassuming, sitting on our doorstep, large and silent. I almost just shoved it aside to lumber through the front door so I could pass out on the couch and turn off my brain, but something stopped me. Her voice. Whose package is this? Is it yours, Diego? That was when I took pause, because it wasn't mine, or at least I didn't think it was. Like I said, Eleanor hadn't been strict necessarily, but she was always very financially conscious. A purchase that would have come in this size of a box would have at least been a conversation when she had been alive, and after she hadn't been anymore I hadn't exactly had the urge to shop online. I inspected it. It kind of felt like it was inspecting me back. I looked for a label, anything, any sign that it was meant for one of the neighbors, but there was nothing. It was just a large unmarked cardboard box, sealed shut with straight and clean lines of clear packing tape. I sighed, burdened by the idea of lugging it inside, but curiosity and that voice in my head won out in the end. I dropped the box in the living room and shuffled to the kitchen, grabbing a beer from the fridge and a pair of scissors. Popping the lid off the bottle with the blade, I slumped onto the couch, staring at it in animosity. In a way, I hated it for giving me something to care about, even in such a microscopic sense. I wanted to be asleep or dead or something in between, but now I was present and my eyes were still open because of this stupid cardboard box. I tore it open, scattering packing peanuts all across the carpet. Eleanor would have had a cow if she had been there. I smiled a little despite myself. My smile quickly dropped as the contents of the box began to reveal themselves beneath the styrofoam. At first I thought it was a mannequin. It wouldn't be that surprising, I guess, considering we lived right next door to a clothing boutique. I thought maybe there was a chance something they ordered for the store just got dropped off at the wrong place. But as I looked closer, forcing my vision to focus, my stomach sank. It was a sex doll. Clear as day. No mannequin had that kind of detail. The doll came in several different pieces, the long legs lying separate to the torso, which was separate to the head. The skin was a tan shade of olive, and her hair was long, dark brown and tangled. She wasn't skinny, which was the first thing I noticed that was strange, stranger than a hyper-realistic sex doll on my doorstep, I mean. She wasn't fat either per se, but the shape of her body was nothing like the sex dolls I had seen before on the internet, not petite, not toned or even overly curvy either. Looking at her body felt familiar to me, like slipping on a sock or climbing into bed. Like something I had done thousands of times before. Then I saw her eyes. Brown eyes, with little flecks of copper. Permanently sad eyes, crinkled at the corners and downturned, with long swooping eyelashes. Her eyes. Eleanor. Before I could stop myself I reached out, I touched her face. The skin was soft and almost oily to the touch, but I only thought about that the next day. It wasn't the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed was that her skin was warm. I leaped backwards, the couch scraping loudly against the floorboards, yet another thing she would have scolded me for. The open, untouched beer landed on the cushions and tipped over, spilling everywhere. My breathing came shallow and ragged, and I grabbed at my chest as if my heart might stop. I felt like it might. That was her. My Eleanor. This doll was her, down to every tiny inconspicuous detail. Even down to the pores on her nose and the slight cleft in her upturned chin. Outside of the panic, I felt nothing. I wasn't capable. I could feel my brain shutting down. I couldn't see, I couldn't hear anything but the ringing in my ears. I sat there in silence for what felt like an hour, until I could convince my body to move, and at that time all I could think to do was drag myself to bed and fall asleep. So that was what I did. In the morning, the first thing I felt was rage. At first I wasn't even entirely sure why I was so angry, but it didn't take very long for it to come rushing back to me. The doll. I ripped open the box, dumping the contents out on the floor of the living room, fueled only by my blind fury. I shuffled aggressively through the packing peanuts, refusing to look at the doll more than I was physically forced to. I had to find something, some clue as to who had sent this to me. Who would be so sick in the head that they thought this was a good idea for a joke. I had half a mind to call up her brother or one of her cousins who had always hated me and demand an answer, but I quickly decided against that. They would never let me see their family again, and they were all I had left of my wife. I didn't find anything but a slip of paper that fluttered out after I had completely torn through everything, with a simple message typed in the center. Customer support, and then a phone number. I dialed immediately. They picked up right on the third ring. Hello, this is customer support. How may I help you today? The voice was cheerful and practiced, recited. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I had no plan other than to call, and now I was clamming up. Who are you? It was all I could think to say. The female voice on the other end of the line offered a polite laugh, not unkind but still corporate in nature. "May I ask what it is that you're calling about?" I swallowed hard, my eyes drifting over to the doll. My throat ached. It felt like I was coming down with something. "I received a doll. I didn't order it." "I see." I heard typing on a keyboard, and I almost felt like I could see her nodding her head. "Could you read me the serial number?" "Serial number?" "Should be right on the doll's head, right behind the ear." I shivered, my face crumpling. I slowly kneeled down, reaching out with trembling fingers to move her hair to the side. There was a serial number, black figures stamped into her fake skin. Right below that there was something else. I felt bile rise in the back of my throat. A little tattoo sat right behind the lobe of her ear, a small hibiscus flower. My hand flew to my own ear, touching the one that matched it. "I hate this placement." I could hear her whine, as if she was saying it right next to me, a smile in her voice. "They did me so wrong, Diego. Why didn't you fight that guy for me? Why didn't you take him out to the parking lot?" I didn't realize I was crying until I tried to speak again. What is this? Serial number?" I wiped at my face, trying not to audibly sniffle. 20200715001-143. "One moment, please." I heard more typing, and then silence. When she spoke again, I couldn't tell if I was imagining it or if her tone had changed slightly. "I see here that you were sent one of our sample models, Diego. We do have upgrades available if you're interested." I didn't catch that she had used my name. If I had, I definitely would have questioned it. "What? Who sent it?" "I'm not at liberty to say, I'm sorry about that." "Well, I'd like to return it." The anger was coming back with a vengeance, and I felt hot all over. "I don't know who would think this was fucking funny, but it's not, and I don't know what kind of company would dash. Please don't raise your voice at me." She cut me off, her voice somehow even more sickly cheerful and corporate than before. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes. "Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would like to return it. Please." "I would highly advise against that." Something about the way she said it, as well as the words themselves, made me feel violently uneasy. I stammered through a response, taken completely off guard. What do you mean?" "I don't want it, I would like to return it. What do you mean by that?" "If you have any other questions, we're always here, okay? Thank you for calling customer support today. I hope everything was to your satisfaction." She didn't wait for me to reply. The line went dead, leaving me holding my phone to my ear in a silent room, my jaw slack. I felt like I could feel the doll watching me. Like Eleanor, but not. Like Eleanor, but without a soul. I googled the customer support phone number. Nothing came up besides an address that was seemingly in the middle of nowhere, nowhere near where I lived. I hauled it into the closet in the spare room and closed the door. I wanted to drive it to the dump, or even just throw it back outside on the doorstep, but something stopped me. I knew it wasn't her. It was the furthest thing from her. Actually, it was some sort of disgusting, evil joke. I didn't know if it was worse if someone commissioned it or if that company just sold dolls that looked exactly like my Eleanor already. Actually, I didn't know which was worse, never mind. But in a way, it was her. It looked like her, and when I moved it with my hands around her waist I was hit with an overwhelming wave of nausea. It felt just like it did the night she died. It felt just like holding her waist on the ground, her body slumped against me, what was left of her brain leaking out onto my shoulder, her skull all but eviscerated from that gunshot wound. The gun they still hadn't been able to find, with a trigger on it that was pulled by someone they also hadn't been able to identify. I tried to forget about it. But it was that very feeling that caused me to bring the doll back out of the closet and put the pieces together, moving slowly as if I was sleepwalking. Maybe I was. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I slept next to the doll that night. I didn't use it. I would be lying if I said the thought didn't cross my mind, but it felt too wrong, too horrible to consider more than as a passing thought. It wasn't Eleanor. It was some plastic imitation. But even so, sleeping with my arms around her like I never thought I would get to do again almost made me want to believe in a god. I dressed her in some of Eleanor's old pajamas, and I fell asleep faster and more restfully than I had in weeks. It felt so real that when I woke up I went to kiss her on the cheek before I remembered. Her body was warm in mine, her skin slightly clammy like it would be on the real Eleanor right when she woke up, when she would pry my arms off of her with her nose scrunched up and mutter, we're sweaty." I called my mom and I told her what had happened. I didn't give her all of the details, the thought too awkward if nothing else to elaborate, but I was pretty sure she got the picture. It was clear she didn't believe me. She asked a lot of questions, all of them along the lines of, "Are you sure you didn't order it and forget about it?" And, "Honey, are you feeling stable enough to be alone right now?" All of this was about a week ago. I've tried a few more times to tell people about this. I even talked to her brother, but no one seems to believe me when I show them the doll. They change how they're talking to me, and they look at me with eyes that are full of disgust only thinly veiled by pity. I know I'm losing them now. They've stopped even pretending to humor me. I can't even blame them, because I can't even bring myself to get rid of her. She's all I have. I know this is embarrassing. I know you're all going to make fun of me for this. I just can't let her go. I can't do it. She just feels so real. I probably wouldn't be posting this, though, if it weren't for the email I got today from the funeral home. Something happened to Eleanor's body. They won't give me all of the details over email or over the phone, but they want me to come down right away, so I'm going to do that after I finish writing this down. But that isn't the worst part. Not by far.
Last night I noticed that Eleanor is starting to smell.